Hey guys, is it possible to lose a game of chess on the second move? Well, no, you can't get checkmated on move 2, as far as I know, but it is possible to set yourself already well on the back foot on move 2. So let me show you what I mean. So I've got a game here. This is quite an old game that I'm going through. I'm working on my new tactics course, and this is an older game. So it's against a player rated in the 1200s, okay? And I'm playing with the white pieces, and I start with e4, and they respond with e5, and I play d4, the centre game. So I'm going here for the Danish gambit. And my opponent actually spends, I think, about 15 seconds on this next move. But it puts him at a significant disadvantage already, okay? And the move that they play is knight to c6. So I'm starting with the white pieces, so I have that first mover advantage. I have a little bit of initiative. But with moving knight to c6 when I have a pawn on d4 allows me simply to push the pawn to d5 and force the knight to move again. Now, where's this knight going to go to? So clearly moving back to b8 would be unpleasant and embarrassing. Moving to e7 would block the queen and the bishop from being able to get out, and actually removing one square from the other knight as well. Interestingly, knight to d4 can fall, I think, to c3. So if the knight's on this square, if you notice, it can't go there because of the pawn, there because of the pawn, there, or there, or there, or there, or there because of the bishop, right? So knight to d4 is not possible, and I have won knights that way before with that knight to d4 c3. So my opponent ends up moving the knight out to a5. And what do we know about knights on the rim? They are dim, but it gets worse. So I carry on with development. So now I'm feeling well in front. d6 is pushed, so this now means that this dark square bishop is going to have a horrible time trying to get out into the board. I come in with bishop to b5 check, which is blocked by the light squared bishop, and I defend my piece. So this is something really to get your head round in the opening, in particular in the opening, because if you can develop a piece while doing what you have to do, it's generally better. So a beginner, for example, might think, oh no, my bishop's being attacked, I'd best retreat to d3 or whatever, okay? Now, the more advanced player would think, okay, now if I develop my knight to c3, defending the bishop, and then black captures and I recapture, black's bishop has disappeared off the board, right? My bishop's moved once, his bishop's moved once, and now I've got a knight on b5 in a potentially threatening position, okay? And that's much better to have the bishops off the board and the knight there than it is to have the bishop retreated, say, to d3. Okay, because I've also developed a piece here, even if the exchange doesn't happen. Here the exchange does go ahead, and now black kicks the knight back with a6, and that's fine. Knight comes back to c3. Now knight to f6 and queen to d3, defending this pawn, adding a second defender, and also maybe preparing to castle long once this bishop comes out, and there's a natural square there on g5 pinning the knight. So the queen moves forward again on black side, white castles king side, and black develops his final piece. Okay, so it seems like black isn't too far behind in this situation. And then comes b4, right? There are no squares for Mr. Knight to go to, okay? He's not moved the b pawn, and so the knight is simply going to fall, and falls to a pawn. And from this point on in the game, black is behind in material. So I come in, I snatch off the second bishop, and now I'm simply up a bishop and start pushing the pawns up the queen side. Not sure on the... Yeah, I mean, this is a possible move, h6, because I do have the bishop and the knight looking at that square. And the game just proceeds, and it's basically now just a case of simplifying, getting pieces off the board, and now there's followed by another blunder. Black plays, so Black's obviously thinking, ooh, checkmating ideas, this would be good, right? Never forget about your own safety, okay? It doesn't matter how exciting this idea of queen to g2, queen takes g2 checkmate is, if it leaves you open to a fork with check, then it's going to backfire on you. So the knight takes the rook, and now white is up a whole rook, pushes f3 to prevent black playing f3, and now the queen starts to come in and starts just gobbling up pawns. There's a potential threat here, but how bad is it? So we've got, yes, again, queen to g2 checkmate. Queen just comes back to f1, starts to bring the knight in, but it's all a bit too little too late, and white gets a second queen. So if we go right back to the beginning again, the start of black's woes in this game comes all the way from move 2. He probably wasn't expecting d4. It's an unusual second move for white, okay? But this move really makes life difficult for black. You know, knight to there, as we've seen, is not possible. So he's only really got 2 forward positions for the knight. But look, if he goes here, then he could fall to c3, and c3 is a decent move. So let's look at that. Okay, knight goes there, c3. c3 is often a good move. f3, or its counterpoint f6 for black, often not a good move, even if it may reinforce a pawn, but because it opens up this diagonal towards the king. And the same with that move. Now, c3 on the other hand is actually quite a good move, because it puts a pawn in the way of that diagonal. Okay, so c3 would be great. It would kick the knight back, and then the knight would have to go back here, where there's a possibility of bishop takes, pawn takes, thus giving black doubled and isolated pawns on the a file. Again, not great. It's just a very badly thought out move. That is absolutely the wrong move to play in that position. Black has many other possibilities. Could play d4, could play d3, could play knight to f6. You know, there's so many different things. So you could even play the bishop out to there if you wanted to, right? But this move is just bad, hands down. Poor move. So it's possible to lose your grip on the game, or to start to lose your grip on the game right at the beginning, and you really do need to think about those opening moves. There's a reason why we have standard openings, because people have figured out over the years that certain moves tend to give you a better position, certain moves will tend to give you a worse position. So master level players who study their theory, and theory really just means remembering what the best moves are when your opponent plays what he's going to play. And clearly, this is not one of the best ones, because with this pawn here, it's leaving that square permanently unavailable for the knight. And then right now, the knight's only got 2 potential other options, and even like just b3, even just playing b3 now, would mean that, so let's say here, this knight already has no squares to go to. Okay, it's a sitting duck. So take care, guys. Do not rush your opening moves. Even if you're pretty sure you know what your opponent's going to play. And in a 15-minute game, there's no excuse for that kind of thing, all right? Take your time on every single move, every single turn of yours. Think, okay, what has my opponent just played? What are my candidate moves? So if I'm thinking about this move, if I make that move, what could my opponent do? What's going to happen if I do that? What happens if my opponent plays that, for example? Okay, you've got to start thinking that little bit further ahead. Okay, this guy's rated 1200. Okay, this is not the kind of mistake. I don't think it's a blunder necessarily, but I don't think it's not the kind of mistake that you should be playing at that kind of rating level. Okay, so please take your time. Even when you think that life is so simple, we're only in the opening, right? We're just starting to move our pawns and life is easy. No, you can go wrong. You can go wrong on move 2, you can go wrong on move 3. Okay, so just take care, take more care of your chess. You will get better results, I promise. See you soon.